some of the Xal'atath whispers from Legion, now with the brand new hints from Dragonflight, suddenly make a lot of sense. In fact, so much sense that it is literally just mind-blowing. It talks about how together with the other old gods, they managed to corrupt Neltharion. Whispers mentioned Galakrond as a tool that they used. Curse of Flesh is mentioned as another tool that they had used as well. Xal'atath also talks about how Titan facilities are a joke compared to their own civilization, and surprisingly it is really resentful, but at the same time seems to cooperate with the remaining 4 old gods. So could it finally be true that Xal'atath is the 5th old god that was consumed by the others? At the moment, all hints seem to be pointing at it, and now with all these Dragon Isles development and all these new whispers, could this be the big ultimate reveal of Dragonflight? Real quick before we get into the video, if you guys are into small-scale MMORPGs, check out Scars of Honor, a game built by a smaller but a really passionate team. They are constantly making progress, improving the game, and just adding a bunch of new features. With my link in the description, you can tune in, and you can also have various supported accounts where you can quite literally directly help development with your own contributions. You can also join their Discord server and their community completely free, so check out Scars of Honor. So I'm barely going to get into the backstory of Xal'atath, as there is just so much to unpack here in so little time. As you may remember, Xal'atath was a dagger back in Legion, an artifact for the Shadow Priest that we knew was in fact some sort of a sentient being. Later, Xal'atath managed to free itself from the blade in a pact with N'Zoth, and since then it has essentially been missing in action for like years. However, back in the day, it gave us so many whispers, that now in hindsight with all the Dragonflight information makes so much sense. It is insane, like I can barely cover all of them in this single video. See, back in the day, around the time of Warcraft 3, so really back in the day, we were told that 5 old gods exist, and later that was retconned and only 4 were confirmed that all of you are familiar with. However, this really was never like a super hard retcon, and seeing how WoW is now all about various perspectives and just retcons and retconning retcons, all of this could have been a lie and the initial information could actually be true. Like, even years ago, we got an official Blizzard statement where they said that the old gods are in fact so crazy and just not even bound to general dimensions we work with. In their words, maybe that would explain why records of the old gods seem to be inconsistent. Only those on the outside would know for certain. Now, here's the thing. Originally, we were told that the old gods were sent as like these weapons by the Void Lords in order to corrupt Azeroth and to turn it to their side. After battling the local elementals, they managed to enslave them, and they managed to establish the massively powerful Black Empire. As we can also learn recently, it was different than what we believed previously, as the Titans had a direct order to lie about their civilization and to hide all the Black Empire advancements. The thing about the old gods though is that they are chaotic. Like literally, they are chaos incarnate, and we know for a fact that despite being an empire, these guys actually battled each other. The way the empire was established was that the minions built structures around the bulk of the specific old gods. The strongest was Y'Shaarj, the weakest of them was N'Zoth. Now, without going into further speculation territory, let's dig into the meat of the matter, and that is Xal'atath, because we have like actual official whispers that confirm this fact. Xal'atath constantly had these whispers like it would talk to you, and a million of them were based on like locations, who the builder was fighting at the time, and this is for example what was said in regards to the Broken Isles. It was here in ages past that the god of the deep lost a great battle to the god of 7 heads, but as was so often the case, even defeat ultimately worked in N'Zoth's favor. So, for example, we have an official confirmation that Y'Shaarj had battled N'Zoth and managed to win. Furthermore, this could be a hint that we also didn't defeat N'Zoth the last time, and it was all a part of a plan, like he actually loses so that he can win in the long term. Now, the thing is, Xal'atath is this sentient being. A lot of people believe this is just some very powerful old god minion, but the sort of forbidden theory is that this was the 5th old god that managed to get into a fight probably with all of them. Seeing how chaotic they are, who knows how these wars were actually working. Maybe it was a free-for-all, maybe 3 of them would ally against the 2 and then battle each other, like no one really knows. However, the theory is they managed to ultimately defeat Xal'atath and get rid of it, like they literally consume Xal'atath. Here are some super interesting whispers that actually sort of kind of confirm this. For example, in regards to N'Zoth, Xal'atath says this: "It is ironic that the weakest of us may be the ultimate victor. Kha'Tun, Yogg-Saron, Y'Shaarj, and, well, only one would remain to consume the world, that was always meant to be. This in itself kind of confirms the chaotic nature of the old gods, and also the fact that Xal'atath mentions 4 old gods and says us as if it is their equal. They're there ultimately to corrupt Azeroth and turn it into a Void Titan, but despite allies, they seem to be in some sort of a free-for-all where they battle each other. It is entirely possible Y'Shaarj was the closest to accomplishing the goal and consuming all of them, but Aman'Tul here intervened and just ripped him out. However, this could also mean that maybe prior to that, Xal'atath almost accomplished it and was the strongest, but the old gods united to pull him down like sort of like a crabs in a bucket. It could also be why Xal'atath emphasizes that N'Zoth was the weakest. We have even more interesting hints that can confirm this, as Xal'atath says another thing. We may face some of my brethren in this conflict, a prospect that delights me. Their power will be mine. They will pay for what was done to me long ago. Of course, we don't really know what was done long ago to Xal'atath, but this might confirm some terrible war that ultimately got rid of the 5th old god sort of permanently. Now, we have even more interesting whispers, and keep in mind this is in relation to the Emerald Nightmare in Legion. To see Yogg-Saron's nightmare in full bloom fills me with jealousy and some pride. This once again confirms the crazy chaotic nature of the old gods. They are like allies, but they're sworn enemies at the same time as well. This is why Xal'atath would be jealous and prideful. Like, this is literally Chaos Incarnate. This is the nature of the Void. Now, all of this is in regards to a possible confirmation that Xal'atath was defeated by the 4 others, but there are other whispers that might confirm that this was not some old god general, but an actual old god, and this, in my opinion, is even more interesting. It is mind-blowing. For example, in regards to fighting some Shyvara, Xal'atath says, "These pretenders play at whispering madness. Amateurs. I should demonstrate proper technique." I mean, if there was something an old guy would say, it would be this. Later down the line, in regards to Ymron and the Curse of Flesh, Xal'atath says, "Ymron was a fine tool. He did more to spread the blessing of flesh than any other of his kind." Once again, the Curse of Flesh was the mechanism that was used by the old gods to weaken and break the Titan influence over Azeroth. While this is attributed to Yogg-Saron, as I said, all old gods kinda work together. N'Zoth corrupted Deathwing, Yogg-Saron created the influence into the Emerald Dream, but all of them worked at it together. So while they fight, they also constantly cooperate, as was shown time and time again. Here is even more proof that it is super related to the current Dragonflight events, despite being like years old. The Fallen Aspect's lair is near. He was the strongest of them, yet the easiest one for us to corrupt. Keep in mind, the fact that Xal'atath says us, and this is also in regards to the Broken Isles. Now, while we're talking about dragons, there is one more quote that is super interesting. "A powerful dragon could also be a powerful tool. Alas, gone are the days of Galakrond." We just learned that Galakrond was a machination of Yogg-Saron, but as I said, all of them work together in a way, so Xal'atath may have also been behind Galakrond as well, like he was actually assisting them. Now, the last super interesting quote is also super related to Dragonflight and the Titan influence, and keep in mind this is back from Legion. "Do not be impressed by tall icons of the Titans which stand here. The towers of sacrifice in Alota dwarf these pathetic temples." So, this once again reinforces the Black Empire and Xal'atath that was a part of it. Now, the reason I'm bringing these whispers into the current timeline and the reason I'm making this video is because we have most hints that we ever had about the old gods in this expansion. Iridikron had escaped and is coordinating with some evil force. We can see Deathwing working directly with the old gods in the most recent animation video. Iridikron is also hiding somewhere where no one can track him, down beneath the earth, and you know, the old gods are obviously beneath Earth. Now, we have this mysterious artifact from the Dragon Isles called the Black Locust that essentially mind controls and says things like "seek me below," that we have no idea what this is all about. Now, other than this, there is one of the older hints, and that is that Xal'atath is actually a claw of Y'Shaarj, and this is also a completely probable theory. I have an entire video on all the Y'Shaarj hints from the Dragonflight that you can check out, so this could even be further confirmation for this. It would also explain pretty much all the quotes, as if anyone was knowledgeable about the Black Empire, it would be the main guy, Y'Shaarj. Although, in one of the quotes, Y'Shaarj is mentioned in third person, so maybe that would not be it. However, it could entirely be possible that Xal'atath could be like the last remnant of the sentience of Y'Shaarj, and it could be like the key to his ultimate possible return. At the same time, the first theory also makes a lot of sense, and that is that the fifth consumed old god, which I think would be a super interesting scenario. Regardless, with all these crazy hints and the most recent Dragonflight whispers that say that with many eyes they will see again, it seriously looks like we are going to get an old god explosion, and that all of them might actually be fully released in the very near future, which could also transition into the next expansion. Like, not a Zod patch where we fight him in a single patch, but a full-on crazy storyline of their actual return of the Black Empire, which might just be the biggest fight we ever had on Azeroth, as keep in mind, the Titans barely managed to defeat this ancient civilization. Thank you for watching. Check out what the two zones will be in Dragonflight by clicking on the screen, and check out Nodes Academy for videos on real-world history. See you next time.